The sensor officer on the hegemony patrol ship stared at his screen for a long moment. He blinked twice. He ran the scan again. The result was the same. "Commander," he said, his voice higher than normal. "We have a contact." Commander Veth looked up from his reports. Patrol duty in the Cathani corridor was boring work. Nothing ever happened here. Merchant ships came and went. Smugglers sometimes tried their luck. Pirates stayed away because there was nothing worth stealing. It was the kind of assignment they gave to officers who had annoyed someone important. "What kind of contact?" Veth asked without much interest. "A warship, Commander. Large, very large." The sensor officer paused. "It just dropped out of hyperspace near Station 12. Veth stood up and walked to the sensor station. He looked at the readings and felt his stomach drop. The ship was massive. Bigger than anything the hegemony had in this sector. Bigger than most things the hegemony had anywhere. "Can you identify it?" he asked. The sensor officer ran the ship's profile through the database. The computer took only a moment to find a match. When the result appeared on screen, the entire bridge went silent. "Human," the sensor officer whispered. "It is a human battleship." Veth grabbed the edge of the console to steady himself. Humans. Everyone knew about humans. They were a species from a distant part of the galaxy. They kept to themselves mostly. They traded with a few neighbors. They seemed friendly enough in the stories merchants told. But everyone also knew the other stories. The older stories. The stories about what happened when the Kreth Dominion decided that human space would make a nice addition to their empire. The Kreth had been powerful. They had conquered dozens of species. They had fleets that darkened the skies of worlds they claimed. The war lasted 3 years. When it ended, the Kreth Dominion no longer existed. Not defeated. Not conquered. Gone. The humans had taken them apart piece by piece until there was nothing left. And then the humans had gone home and returned to their quiet lives as if nothing had happened. "What is it doing?" Veth asked. "Nothing, Commander. It is just sitting there. No weapons armed. No aggressive posture. It has not even raised shields." Veth did not know if that was better or worse. A ship that size could destroy his patrol vessel without effort. If it wanted to attack, it would not need to prepare. "Open a channel to Sector Command," Veth ordered. "Priority Alpha." The communications officer made the connection. A few moments later, the face of Admiral Korath appeared on the main screen. The Admiral looked annoyed at being disturbed. "Commander Veth, this had better be important. I was in a meeting with. A human battleship has entered our sector, Admiral." Korath stopped talking. His expression changed from annoyance to confusion to something that looked very much like fear. "Repeat that," he said. "A human battleship, Admiral. It dropped out of hyperspace near Station 12 approximately 4 minutes ago. It has made no hostile moves. It is simply present. One ship. You are certain it is alone?" Veth checked with his sensor officer, who nodded. "One ship, Admiral. No other contacts." Korath was quiet for a long moment. Veth could see him thinking, trying to process information that made no sense. "Do not approach," Korath finally said. "Do not make contact. Maintain observation distance and report any changes. I need to inform High Command." The screen went dark. Veth looked at his crew. They looked back at him with wide eyes. "You heard the Admiral," Veth said. "We watch. We do not engage. We do not even look threatening." He paused. "And someone get me everything we have on humans. I want to know what we are dealing with, far across the sector. On the capital world of Valoria Prime." Governor Tarnus was enjoying a quiet dinner when his personal communicator began to flash. With an urgent signal, he sighed and answered it. 10 minutes later, he was running through the halls of the administrative complex. His dinner forgotten. The Situation Room was already filling with officers and advisors when he arrived. Screens on the walls showed the sensor data from Commander Veth's patrol ship. The human battleship sat in space like a sleeping predator. "What do we know?" Tarnus demanded. Admiral Korath stepped forward. "The ship is definitely human. Configuration matches vessels observed during the Kreth War. It is a capital-class battleship, approximately 2 kilometers in length. Our records indicate this class of ship carries weapons capable of destroying a small moon. Why is it here? We do not know, Governor. It has made no hostile moves. In fact, About 20 minutes ago, it broadcast a message. What kind of message? Korath touched a control. A voice filled the room. It was speaking in the common galactic trade language, but with a strange accent that Tarnus had never heard before. This is the UN's resolute to any Valorian hegemony vessels or stations. We request permission to dock at the nearest suitable facility for humanitarian purposes. We carry refugees in need of medical attention and supplies. We mean no harm. Please respond. The message ended. The room was silent. Humanitarian purposes, Tarnus repeated slowly. They bring a battleship for humanitarian purposes. It could be a trick. One of his advisors suggested. A way to get close to our stations before attacking. If they wanted to attack, they would not need tricks, Korath said quietly. That ship could destroy every vessel we have in this sector and still have power to spare. The fact that they are asking permission suggests they genuinely do not want to fight. Tarnus walked to the main screen and stared at the image of the human battleship. It was an ugly thing by Valorian standards. No elegant curves or flowing lines. Just hard angles and flat surfaces covered in what looked like armor plating and weapon ports. It was a ship built for one purpose, and that purpose was violence. But it was sitting still. It was asking for help. It was waiting for an answer. Have we responded? Tarnus asked. Not yet, Governor. We were waiting for your orders. Tarnus thought about the stories. Not just the war stories, but the other ones. The strange stories that merchants told after they had been drinking. Stories about human ships that stopped to help stranded vessels regardless of species. Stories about human colonies that took in refugees from conflicts they had no part in. Stories about humans who seemed to care about strangers for no logical reason. Send a message to High Command, Tarnus said. Tell them exactly what has happened and what the humans have requested. Ask for instructions. He paused. And send an acknowledgement to the human ship. Tell them we have received their message and are processing their request. Ask them to hold position and wait for further communication. You are not authorizing them to dock? Korath asked. I am not authorizing anything until I hear from the Emperor himself. This is too big for me to decide alone. Tarnus looked at the Admiral. How long until High Command can respond? 2 hours, perhaps 3. The Emperor is in session with the full council. Then we wait, and we hope the humans are as patient as they seem. On the bridge of the UN's resolute. Captain Elena Vance read the Valorian response and nodded to herself. It was about what she had expected. A polite acknowledgement that really said nothing at all. Standard diplomatic delay tactics while they figured out how to handle an unexpected situation. She understood. If a Valorian battleship had suddenly appeared in human space, her own government would react the same way. Probably with more panic, if she was honest. Humans had a long history of assuming the worst about unexpected visitors. They want us to wait, Captain, her communications officer reported. Then we wait, Vance said. We have time. The refugees are stable. Medical has the wounded under control. We can give the Valorians a few hours to get over their surprise. She leaned back in her command chair and looked at the main screen. It showed the Valorian patrol ship hanging in space, at what the crew had started calling nervous distance, close enough to observe, far enough to run if necessary. Vance did not blame them. The Resolute was a scary ship. It was designed to be scary. During the Kreth War, ships like this had broken the back of an empire. They carried enough firepower to sterilize a planet. They were crewed by people who had been trained to use that firepower without hesitation. But they were also crewed by people who had been trained to protect the helpless. That was why the Resolute had responded to the distress signal 3 days ago. That was why it had fought off the raiders attacking the colony ship. That was why it now carried 2,000 refugees from half a dozen species, including several hundred Valorian citizens, who were very surprised to find themselves rescued by humans. Vance thought about those refugees now. They were scared and confused and hurt. Some of them had lost family members. Some of them had lost everything. They needed food and medicine and a safe place to recover. The Resolute could provide some of that, but it was a warship, not a hospital. The refugees deserved better. Captain, her first officer said, do you think they will let us dock? Eventually, Vance replied. Right now they are afraid. They see a human battleship and they think about the Kreth War. They expect us to start making demands or issuing threats. When we do not do that, they will become confused. And when confused people have time to think, they usually make reasonable decisions. And if they decide not to be reasonable, Vance smiled slightly, then we find another way to help these refugees. But I have faith in people, Commander, even people from the council chamber on Valoria Prime was the most impressive room in the Empire. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Its walls were covered with paintings that told the history of the hegemony, from its earliest days to its current glory. Its floor was made from stone imported from 100 different worlds today. That impressive room was filled with fear. Emperor Calith sat on his throne and listened to his advisors argue. They had been arguing for 2 hours now. They had not reached any conclusions. It must be an invasion force. General Moth insisted for the 5th time. The humans are testing our defenses. They send one ship to see how we respond. If we show weakness, more will follow. One ship is not an invasion force, Minister Voroth replied. He was the head of Imperial Intelligence, a small male with sharp eyes and a mind that saw patterns others missed. The humans have never shown interest in expansion. After the HFY War, they returned to their own space. They have not taken territory from anyone that we know of, General Moth said. Perhaps they have been expanding in secret. Perhaps they have been waiting for the right moment to strike. If humans wanted to conquer us, they would not start with one ship in a remote sector, Voroth said. They would bring a fleet. They would strike at our core worlds. They would not ask permission to dock. Emperor Calith raised a hand. The arguing stopped immediately. Minister Voroth, the Emperor said, "Tell me what you know about humans. Not rumors, not stories, facts." Voroth bowed and touched a control on his wrist. Holographic images appeared in the center of the chamber. They showed the human home world, a blue and green sphere that looked peaceful enough. Humans come from a planet called Earth, Voroth began. It is what we call a death world. The gravity is higher than most inhabited planets. The atmosphere contains a corrosive gas called oxygen. The surface experiences extreme temperature changes, violent weather, and regular geological disasters. Native life forms include predators of remarkable size and aggression. The images changed, showing various Earth animals. Council members shifted uncomfortably at the sight of creatures with too many teeth and too little mercy. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, Voroth continued. They cannot run fast, but they can run forever. They would chase prey for days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. This gave them remarkable endurance and a psychology that values patience and long-term thinking. This is all very interesting, General Moth interrupted. But what about their military capabilities? Voroth changed the images again. Now the chamber showed scenes from the HFY War, ships burning, fleets scattered, worlds under bombardment. 37 years ago, the HFY Dominion invaded human space. The HFY were one of the great powers of the galaxy. They had conquered 32 species. Their military was considered unstoppable. The images showed HFY warships, massive vessels bristling with weapons. Then they showed those same ships in pieces, drifting through the void as wreckage. The humans won. Voroth said simply, not just won. They destroyed the HFY completely. In the Battle of Proxima, a single human fleet of 40 ships engaged a HFY armada of 300 vessels. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, every HFY ship had been destroyed. The humans lost 7 ships. The chamber was very quiet. How is that possible? Someone asked. Human technology is not significantly better than ours, Voroth admitted. Their ships are tough, but not invincible. Their weapons are powerful, but not magical. The difference is in how they fight. He changed the images again. Now they showed humans, actual humans, in various situations, training, fighting, working together. Humans are pack hunters by nature. They cooperate instinctively. In battle, human units function as single organisms. Each member knows what the others will do before they do it. They cover each other's weaknesses. They sacrifice themselves for their companions without hesitation. Voroth paused and looked directly at the Emperor. But the most dangerous thing about humans is not their military power. It is what they believe. What do they believe? Emperor Calith asked. They believe that every thinking being has value. They believe that the strong have a duty to protect the weak. They believe that helping strangers is not a foolish waste of resources, but a moral obligation. General Moth laughed. That sounds like weakness, not strength. The Kreth thought so too, Voroth said. They were wrong. Human compassion is not weakness. It is the foundation of their strength. Because humans care about each other, they fight harder. Because they believe in protecting the innocent, they do not surrender. Because they think helping strangers is right, they have allies everywhere they go. He touched another control. A new image appeared. It showed the human battleship currently sitting in their space. This ship is called the Resolute. It is commanded by Captain Elena Vance, according to our intelligence. She is a veteran of multiple conflicts and is known for creative solutions to difficult problems. She has never lost a ship under her command, so she is dangerous, General Moth said. Very dangerous, Voroth agreed. But not, I think, to us. Not today. How can you be sure? Voroth brought up a star map. It showed the route the Resolute had taken to reach hegemony space. The ship came from the neutral zone, he said. 3 days ago, there was a distress signal from that region. A colony transport was attacked by raiders. The Resolute was the closest capable vessel. It appears they responded to the signal and rescued the survivors. Why would they do that? Someone asked. The neutral zone is not human territory. Because someone needed help, Voroth said. That is how humans think. Distance and politics do not matter to them. If someone is in danger, they respond. Emperor Caliph leaned forward on his throne. You said the ship carries refugees. Who are these refugees? Mixed species, Your Majesty. Several hundred are Valorian citizens. This caused a stir in the chamber. Valorian citizens, rescued by a human warship. There is something else, Voroth said. His voice was careful now, as if he was walking on thin ice. The colony transport that was attacked, it came from our territory. Specifically, it came from Mining Station 7 in the Cathani asteroid belt. Governor Tarnus, who had been silent until now, suddenly looked very pale. Mining Station 7 was destroyed 6 months ago. Equipment failure. There were no survivors. That is what the official report says, Voroth agreed. But the refugees on the human ship tell a different story. They say the station was attacked by raiders. They say they sent distress signals for 3 days before giving up and trying to escape on their own. They say our patrol ships never came. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Emperor Caliph raised his hand again, demanding silence. Are you saying the official report was false? I am saying that several hundred of our citizens are currently on a human battleship, and they have stories that contradict our records. I am saying that if those stories become public, there will be questions. Difficult questions. Emperor Caliph sat back and thought about this. A cover-up. Someone in his government had covered up a massacre and left survivors to die. And now those survivors were in the hands of humans. What do the humans want? He asked finally, according to their message. They want to deliver the refugees to safety and resupply their ship. Nothing more, and you believe them. Voroth hesitated. I believe that humans usually mean what they say. They are not skilled at deception. It is not their nature. If Captain Vance says she wants to help refugees, she probably wants to help refugees. But helping refugees means bringing them home. And when they come home, they will talk. They will tell everyone what really happened to Mining Station 7. The cover-up will collapse. Emperor Caliph understood now. This was not just a diplomatic incident. This was a potential scandal that could shake his government. Someone had failed those citizens. Someone had lied about it. And now a human battleship had accidentally uncovered the truth. Who authorized the false report? He asked. Voroth glanced at General Moth, just for a moment. But it was enough. Emperor Caliph looked at his military commander. General Moth's face had become very still. General, Your Majesty, the situation was complicated. The raiders who attacked the station were well armed. Sending rescue ships would have been dangerous. We made a tactical decision. You left our citizens to die, and then lied about it. General Moth had nothing to say to that. Emperor Caliph felt anger building inside him. Anger at the deception. Anger at the waste of life. Anger at the stupidity that had created this situation. but he forced the anger down. He was the Emperor. He needed to think clearly. "Here's what will happen," he said. "We will allow the human ship to dock. We will accept the refugees with gratitude. We will thank Captain Vance for her assistance, and we will launch an investigation into what really happened at Mining Station 7. Your Majesty," General Moth began, if we admit the truth, we show that we are capable of correcting our mistakes. If we try to suppress the truth now, we make enemies of the humans who already know it. Which option seems wiser to you, General?" General Moth fell silent. Emperor Caloth stood from his throne. The council rose with him. "Send a message to the human ship," he ordered. "Tell them they are welcome in our space. Tell them we are grateful for the rescue of our citizens. And tell them we wish to speak with Captain Vance directly. I want to understand these humans better." He looked around the Resolute docked at Station 12 with a gentleness that surprised the Valorian observers. Such a massive ship, they thought, should move like a beast. Instead, it moved like a dancer, precise and careful. A delegation waited on the docking platform. Ambassador Sri led the group. She was young for such a responsibility, but she had a reputation for clever thinking and calm under pressure. The Emperor had chosen her specifically for this task. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a figure stepped out. Captain Elena Vance was smaller than Sri had expected. Humans were supposed to be these terrifying warriors, but this woman looked almost ordinary. She had dark hair cut short for practical reasons. Her uniform was clean but simple. Her face showed signs of tiredness, the kind that came from long days and too much responsibility. But her eyes were sharp. When they met Saris's gaze, the ambassador felt like she was being measured by someone who missed nothing. "Ambassador Suri?" Vance asked. Her voice was pleasant, but direct. "Yes, Captain Vance, on behalf of the Valorian hegemony. I welcome you to our space." Vance nodded politely. "Thank you for receiving us. I know our arrival was unexpected. Your message mentioned refugees? 2,347 individuals, representing 6 different species. Approximately 400 are Valorian citizens. Many are injured. All are traumatized." Vance paused. "They need help that my ship cannot provide. Medical facilities, counseling, a safe place to recover." Suri had been briefed on what to expect, but hearing the numbers directly was different. Over 2,000 people. How had they all fit on a warship? "We have prepared receiving areas," Suri said. "Medical teams are standing by. We can begin transferring the refugees immediately if you wish. That would be appreciated. But first, I think you should meet some of them." Suri blinked. "Meet them?" "The Valorian survivors specifically. They have stories you should hear before the official processing begins. Stories about how they came to be on my ship." There was something in Vance's tone that made Suri uneasy. A warning, perhaps, or a challenge. "Very well," Suri said. "Lead the way, Captain." Vance turned and walked back through the airlock. Suri followed, her guards close behind. The interior of the human ship was not what she had expected. Yes, there were weapons everywhere. Yes, the corridors were built for efficiency rather than comfort. But there were also small touches that spoke of the people who lived here. Pictures attached to walls, personal items on shelves, a child's drawing displayed near a doorway. Humans lived on this ship, Suri realized. Not just soldiers, people. Vance led them to a large cargo bay that had been converted into a shelter. Temporary beds filled the space. Medical equipment beeped and hummed. Crew members moved among the refugees, offering food and water and comfort. The refugees themselves were a mixed group. Some species Suri recognized, others she did not. All of them looked tired and scared. Many had bandages or wore the signs of recently healed injuries. Near the center of the bay, a group of Valorians huddled together. They looked up as Vance approached, and their expressions showed a mix of emotions, relief, gratitude, and something else. Something that looked like anger barely held in check. "These are survivors from Mining Station 7, Vance said quietly. "They have agreed to speak with you." An older male stepped forward. His scales were dull with stress and poor nutrition, but his eyes were fierce. "You are from the government?" he asked Suri. "I am Ambassador Suri. I represent the Emperor." The male laughed bitterly. "The Emperor? And where was the Emperor 6 months ago when we were sending distress calls? Where was the Emperor when the raiders killed my wife? Where was the Emperor when we drifted in space for weeks, waiting for rescue that never came? Suri felt her prepared words die in her throat. I was not aware. Of course you were not aware. The government said we all died in an equipment failure. A convenient lie. No need for investigations. No need for consequences. Just mark the file closed and forget about us. Another survivor, a young female, spoke up. We sent emergency signals for 3 days. Standard procedure. The signals reached patrol ships. We know because we tracked the relays. Someone heard us. Someone made a decision not to respond. That cannot be true, Suri said, though her voice lacked conviction. Our forces would never abandon citizens in danger. Then explain why we are here. The older male said, explain why humans came from across the galaxy to save us when our own people left us to die. Suri had no explanation. She looked at Captain Vance, hoping for some help, but the human captain just watched with patient eyes. I do not know what happened. Suri finally said, but I swear to you, I will find out. The Emperor himself has ordered an investigation. An investigation, the male repeated flatly. Will it find the truth, or will it find another convenient lie? I cannot promise outcomes, but I can promise effort. Real effort. Suri hesitated, then did something that surprised even herself. She bowed deeply to the survivors. On behalf of the hegemony, I apologize for what you have suffered. It should not have happened. Someone failed you. I do not yet know who, but I will find out. The survivors looked at each other uncertain. They had expected denial. They had expected excuses. They had not expected an apology. Captain Vance spoke quietly. Ambassador, I have recordings. Suri looked at her sharply. Recordings? Of the distress signals sent by Mining Station 7. Of the relay confirmations showing the signals were received by hegemony vessels. Of the timestamps proving that help was available but never sent. Vance's expression remained neutral, but her words carried weight. I will provide copies to you for your investigation. The implication was clear. The humans had evidence. Hard evidence that could not be denied or explained away. If the hegemony tried to cover this up again, the truth would come out anyway. Suri understood the position she was in. The smart move was to embrace the truth and get ahead of the scandal. Any attempt to suppress the evidence would only make things worse when it eventually became public. Thank you, Captain, she said. That evidence will be valuable for ensuring justice. Vance nodded slightly. For the first time, something like approval flickered in her eyes. The transfer of refugees began shortly after. Medical teams from the station worked alongside human crew members to move the injured safely. The healthier refugees walked on their own, clutching the few possessions they had managed to save. Suri watched the process and felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. These people had been failed by her government. Now it was her job to make things right. She found herself standing next to Captain Vance as they observed the transfer. Why did you do it? Suri asked. Do what? Come all this way. Risk your ship. Help strangers who meant nothing to you. The neutral zone is far from human space. The colony transport was not your responsibility. You could have ignored the distress signal, and no one would have blamed you. Vance was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. When I was young, my grandmother told me a story. She said that once, a long time ago, humans only cared about their own families, their own tribes, their own nations. They fought wars against each other. They let strangers suffer while they looked away. What changed? We almost destroyed ourselves. Wars, pollution, greed. We came very close to the end. Vance looked at Suri directly. And then we realized something important. The universe does not care about borders or species or politics. Suffering is suffering. Need is need. When you have the power to help, you have the obligation to help. Not because of what you might gain, but because it is right. That seems impractical, Suri said carefully. Perhaps. But it works. When we help others, we build trust. When we build trust, we build alliances. When we build alliances, we become stronger. Not through conquest, but through connection. Vance smiled slightly. The Kreth never understood that. They thought power came from domination. They were wrong. Suri thought about this. It was so different from how the hegemony operated. The hegemony believed in self-interest. It helped allies when helping served a purpose. It ignored problems that were not its concern. But here was a human battleship that had crossed light years to save strangers. Here were human crew members treating refugees like honored guests. Here was a captain who spoke of obligation and connection instead of advantage and gain. Maybe the humans were naive. Or maybe they understood something that the hegemony had forgotten. "The Emperor wishes to speak with you," Suri said. "Directly. Will you agree to a meeting?" "Of course. But I have conditions." Suri tensed slightly. Here it comes, she thought. The demands. The leverage. What conditions? The refugees must be cared for properly. All of them, not just the Valorian citizens. They must be given medical treatment, housing, and the resources they need to rebuild their lives. They must not be punished for speaking the truth about what happened to them. That was not what Suri had expected. "You are not asking for anything for yourself, for your ship, for your government. We did not come here for rewards, Ambassador." Admiral Greth was not a patient male. He had risen through the ranks of the hegemony navy through aggression and boldness. He believed that problems should be attacked directly and destroyed. Waiting and talking and negotiating were for weaker beings. When he heard that a human battleship was being welcomed into hegemony space, he was disgusted. When he learned that the ship carried evidence of military failures, he became alarmed. And when he discovered that the Emperor planned to meet with the human captain personally, he decided to act. The Emperor does not understand the danger. He told his bridge crew as his flagship, the Dominion, led a squadron of 5 warships through hyperspace. Humans cannot be trusted. They are predators wearing masks of friendship. This rescue mission is obviously a cover for intelligence gathering. We must neutralize the threat before it grows. His crew did not argue. They had served under Greth for years. They knew better than to question his decisions. "What are your orders, Admiral?" His first officer asked. "We intercept the human ship before it reaches the station. We demand its surrender. If it refuses, we disable it and take the crew prisoner. The Emperor will thank us once he sees the evidence we uncover, and if the humans resist." Greth smiled coldly. "Then we destroy them. 1 ship against 5. Even human technology cannot overcome those odds." The squadron dropped out of hyperspace between the Resolute and its destination. 5 hegemony warships, weapons armed and shields raised. They spread into an attack formation and waited. On the Resolute, alarms began to sound. Captain Vance was in her quarters, preparing for her meeting with the Emperor when the alert came. She was on the bridge within minutes, still fastening her uniform jacket. "Report," she ordered. 5 hegemony warships, Captain. They dropped out of hyperspace directly in our path. They are blocking our approach to the station. Her tactical officer studied the readouts. They are powering weapons and raising shields. "This looks hostile." Vance looked at the main screen. The hegemony ships were smaller than the Resolute, but 5 against 1 was not good odds even for a human battleship. If this turned into a fight, people would die. Maybe a lot of people. "Open a channel to the lead ship," she ordered. The communication was established quickly. A Valorian male appeared on the screen. He had the look of someone who believed himself superior to everyone around him. "Human vessel. This is Admiral Greth of the hegemony navy. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Vance kept her expression calm. "Admiral Greth, I am Captain Elena Vance of the Resolute. We have been granted permission by your own government to dock at Station 12. We are on a humanitarian mission, not a combat operation. There is no need for hostility. Your mission is a lie. You are spies, gathering intelligence on our territory. You will surrender now, or we will open fire." Vance felt her crew tensing around her. They were ready to fight if necessary. The Resolute could take punishment that would destroy lesser ships, and her crew was trained to strike hard and fast when needed. But fighting was the last thing Vance wanted. "Admiral, I understand that our presence may be concerning to you. Humans do not often travel this far into your space. But I assure you, we mean no harm. We are simply trying to help refugees reach safety. Once that is done, we will leave peacefully." Lies, Greth spat. "Humans are incapable of acting without selfish motive. You want something from us. Territory, resources, information. I will not let you take it. I want nothing but to complete my mission. Please, Admiral, contact your government. Confirm our authorization. There's no need for violence here. Greth shook his head. The Emperor has been fooled by your deception. It falls to me to protect the hegemony from threats he cannot see. You have 1 minute to power down your weapons. After that, we attack. The communication ended. Vance looked at her bridge crew. Options? We can fight, her weapons officer said. We outgun any individual ship in that squadron. If we concentrate fire on the lead vessel, we can destroy it quickly and scatter the others, and kill hundreds of hegemony crew members, people who are just following orders from a rogue admiral. Vance shook her head. That is not an option. We could run, her navigator suggested. Jump to hyperspace before they can stop us. Leave hegemony space entirely, and abandon the refugees we already delivered. Abandon the promise I made to Ambassador Suri. Vance shook her head again. No, we stay. Then what do we do, Captain? Vance thought for a moment. Then she smiled slightly. We do something that Admiral Greth will never expect. Open a broadcast channel. Maximum range. I want everyone in this sector to hear what I am about to say. Her communications officer looked surprised but obeyed. Channel open, Captain. Vance stood straight and spoke clearly. This is Captain Elena Vance of the UNS Resolute to all vessels and stations in this sector. I am broadcasting our position and status. We are currently being threatened by a squadron of hegemony warships under Admiral Greth's command. He has ordered us to surrender. Despite the authorization we received from your government to enter your space, she paused, letting the words sink in. We came here to help. We rescued over 2,000 refugees, including several hundred Valorian citizens. We asked nothing in return. We made no demands. We simply offered aid to those in need. Another pause. Admiral Greth believes we are enemies. We are not. We are here as friends. And as proof of our friendship, I am taking the following action. She turned to her tactical officer. Power down all weapons. Drop shields, Captain. The officer looked stunned. Do it. Now. The officer hesitated, then obeyed. Across the Resolute, weapon systems went silent. Shield generators powered down. The mightiest battleship in the sector became defenseless. Vance continued her broadcast. We are now completely vulnerable. We cannot fight. We cannot run. We are trusting that the Valorian people will not allow us to be destroyed. For the crime of helping strangers, she looked directly at the screen, though she knew Greth was watching. Admiral, if you want to destroy us, you can. We will not resist, but you will have to do it in front of everyone. Every ship, every station, every citizen who is listening right now. They will all see what you choose to do to a ship that came in peace and dropped its defenses rather than fight. The broadcast ended. The bridge was silent. Now we wait, Vance said, on the Dominion. Admiral Greth stared at his screen in disbelief. The human ship had disarmed itself. Completely. It was sitting there like a target, waiting to be destroyed. It had to be a trick, some kind of deception, a hidden weapon or a plan he could not see. Scan them, he ordered. Full spectrum. Find the trap. His sensor officer worked frantically. No weapons active, Admiral. Shields are down. Power readings confirm they have genuinely disarmed. That is impossible. No commander would make themselves vulnerable like that. Apparently human commanders would, sir. Greth felt uncertainty creeping into his mind. He had expected the humans to fight. He had prepared for battle. He had not prepared for surrender. But it was not really surrender, was it? The human captain had not agreed to his demands. She had simply stopped fighting. She had put herself at his mercy while broadcasting to everyone in the sector. If he destroyed her now, he would be killing a defenseless ship. A ship full of people who had done nothing wrong. People who had come to help Valorian citizens. The story would spread. Other species would hear about it. The humans especially would hear about it. And if there was one thing Greth knew about humans, it was that they did not forget when their people were killed. His first officer spoke quietly. Admiral, we are receiving messages from the station, from other ships in the sector. They are asking what we are doing. Ignore them, sir. One of the messages is from the Emperor's personal communication channel. He is demanding to speak with you immediately. Greth felt the situation slipping out of his control. The human captain had outmaneuvered him without firing a shot. By making herself vulnerable, she had made him look like a bully. By broadcasting her intentions, she had made him accountable to witnesses. If he attacked now, he would start a war, not just with the humans, but with public opinion. His own people would condemn him. The Emperor would have him executed. If he backed down, he would look weak. His career would be damaged. His enemies in the government would use this against him. There was no good option. The human had created a situation where any action Greth took would hurt him more than it would hurt her. "Admiral," his first officer said urgently, "the Emperor is demanding response. What should I tell him?" Greth looked at the defenseless human ship on his screen. He thought about the stories from the HFY War. He thought about what humans were capable of when they chose to fight. This captain had chosen not to fight. She had chosen to trust. And somehow, that choice had defeated him more completely than any weapon could have. "Stand down," he said finally. The words tasted like ash in his mouth. "Power down weapons. Lower shields. Tell the Emperor. Tell him we were conducting a security patrol and encountered no threats." His crew obeyed. The tension on the bridge did not fade, but the immediate crisis was over. On the Resolute, Vance watched the hegemony ships power down their weapons. She let out a breath she did not realize she had been holding. "Status?" she asked. "All hostile vessels are standing down, Captain. We are receiving a message from Station 12. Ambassador Suri wishes to speak with Throne Room of Valoria Prime." Was designed to make visitors feel small. The ceiling disappeared into shadows high above. The walls stretched back farther than the eye could easily follow. The throne itself sat on a raised platform, forcing everyone who approached to look up at the Emperor. Captain Elena Vance walked across the polished floor without hesitation. She had been in impressive rooms before. She had faced beings who wanted to intimidate her before. She was not easily impressed. Emperor Caliph watched her approach with interest. He had studied the recordings from the standoff with Admiral Greth. He had seen how this human woman had diffused a dangerous situation with nothing but words and courage. He had expected to meet a warrior. Instead, he was meeting something more complicated. Vance stopped at the appropriate distance and inclined her head respectfully. She did not bow deeply. She did not grovel. She showed courtesy without submission. "Captain Vance," the Emperor said, "thank you for accepting my invitation. Thank you for receiving me, Your Majesty. I am honored by the opportunity to speak directly." The Emperor gestured, and attendants brought a chair for Vance. She sat, noting that the chair was positioned lower than the throne, but not insultingly so. A calculated move. Everything in this room was calculated. "I have many questions," the Emperor said. "But first, I must offer an apology. Admiral Greth's actions were unauthorized and unacceptable. He has been removed from command and will face justice. I appreciate that, Your Majesty. I hold no personal grudge against him. He was afraid, and fear makes people do foolish things. You are generous. He nearly started a war, but he did not. In the end, he chose to stand down. That choice matters." The Emperor studied her face. "You believe people can change? Even people who have acted badly. I believe people make choices. Some choices lead to harm. Some choices lead to healing. The same person can make different choices at different times. That is what makes us more than our worst moments." These were strange words coming from a species famous for destroying empires. The Emperor found himself intrigued. "Tell me, Captain, why did you come to our space?" "The truth, not the diplomatic version." Vance considered the question. "The truth is simple, Your Majesty. We received a distress signal. People were in danger. We went to help, even though those people were strangers, even though helping them meant entering foreign territory with a warship." "Yes, why? What did you hope to gain?" Vance smiled slightly. "Nothing. We hoped to save lives. That was the only goal." The Emperor leaned forward. "I do not understand this. In my experience, every action serves some purpose. Every choice has a motive. You crossed light years of space, risked confrontation with a major power, and spent resources your government could have used elsewhere. There must be a reason beyond simple compassion." "There is," Vance admitted, "but it is not the kind of reason you are expecting." "Explain." Vance thought for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Humans nearly destroyed ourselves once. Long before we reached the stars, we almost ended our own civilization through war and greed and short-sighted thinking. We came very close to extinction. Many species have such histories. Yes, but we learned something from ours. We learned that selfishness is ultimately self-defeating. When you only care about your own survival, you make enemies of everyone else. When you ignore the suffering of others, you weaken the bonds that hold society together. When you take without giving, you eventually run out of things to take. She paused, looking directly at the Emperor. We help strangers because it is the right thing to do, but also because it makes us stronger. Every life we save is a potential ally. Every kindness we show is a seed of trust. Every time we choose cooperation over conflict, we build a galaxy that is safer for everyone, including us. That seems idealistic, perhaps, but it works. After the HFY War, we could have conquered. We had the power, but we chose to rebuild instead. We helped our former enemies recover. We established trade agreements and mutual defense treaties. Today, the species that once fought beside the HFY are our friends. They trade with us. They share technology with us. They defend our borders alongside their own. The Emperor was quiet. This was not what he had expected to hear. You say you help strangers. You say you do not seek conquest, but your reputation says otherwise. The stories of the HFY War paint humans as merciless destroyers. The HFY attacked us without provocation. They killed millions of our people. They gave us no choice but to fight. Vance's expression grew serious. When we fight to win. We do not hold back. We do not show mercy to enemies who are still trying to kill us. But the moment the threat ends, so does the violence. You showed mercy to Admiral Greth. He was threatening you. He was afraid. There's a difference between an enemy who wants to destroy you and a frightened person making a bad decision. Greth did not want war. He wanted to protect his empire from a perceived threat. When I showed him that I was not a threat, he made a different choice. And if he had not, if he had opened fire on your defenseless ship, Vance met the Emperor's eyes without flinching. Then my crew would have died doing what we believed was right. And the humans who came after us would have arrived with very different intentions. The Emperor felt a chill at those words. Not a threat, exactly. Just a statement of fact. Humans were willing to die for their principles, but they were also willing to fight for their people. It was a strange combination. Compassion and ferocity. Mercy and strength. The capacity for both kindness and destruction, held in careful balance. I have heard reports from the refugees you rescued, the Emperor said. Particularly the survivors from Mining Station 7. Their stories are disturbing. They are telling the truth, Your Majesty. I have evidence that confirms their accounts, I know. Ambassador Suri has shared your recordings with my investigators. The Emperor's expression hardened. Someone in my government made a terrible decision. Citizens were abandoned. Lives were lost. And then the truth was buried. What will you do about it? I will find those responsible and hold them accountable. I will ensure that the survivors receive compensation and support. And I will implement changes to prevent such failures from happening again. The Emperor paused. I tell you this because I want you to understand. We are not proud of what happened. We are ashamed, but we will make it right. Vance nodded slowly. That is all anyone can ask. To acknowledge mistakes and work to correct them. You humans have a strange effect on people. The Emperor observed. Ambassador Suri has been changed by her interactions with you. Admiral Greth has been humbled. And I find myself questioning assumptions I have held for decades. What assumptions? That power comes from dominance. That strength means the ability to crush opposition. That compassion is weakness. The Emperor shook his head slowly. You dropped your shields in front of an armed squadron. You made yourself vulnerable to prove a point. In my culture, that would be considered foolish. But it worked. You won without fighting. That was the goal, Vance said. Fighting should always be the last option, not the first. Why? Because fighting destroys. Even when you win, you lose something. Lives, resources, trust. The relationships that could have been built if you had chosen differently. Vance leaned forward. The galaxy is vast and dangerous. There are real threats out there. Species that cannot be reasoned with. Dangers that must be fought. We save our strength for those battles. Everything else we try to resolve through understanding." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. He looked at the human woman sitting across from him and saw something he had not expected. Not a warrior, not a diplomat, something in between. "What do you want from the hegemony, Captain Vance?" "Right now, I want the refugees to be cared for properly. All of them, not just the Valorian citizens. I want the truth about mining Station 7 to come out. I want justice for those who were failed. And in the long term," Vance smiled, "in the long term, I would like our peoples to be friends, not allies necessarily, not partners in some grand strategic arrangement, just friends, beings, who trade and talk and help each other when times are hard." That seems like a modest request from a species that could demand much more. Friendship cannot be demanded. It must be earned, and it must be given freely. Vance stood. "Your Majesty, I have taken enough of your time. My ship needs resupply before we can continue our journey home. With your permission, I will return to Station 12 and oversee those preparations." The Emperor rose as well. The formal audience was ending, but something had shifted between them. Something subtle but significant. "Captain Vance, before you go, I must ask one more question. Of course, if you encountered another situation like this one, another group of strangers in danger far from your home, would you help them again?" Vance did not hesitate. "Yes, even knowing the risks, even knowing that your help might not be appreciated or understood. Yes, every time. That is who we are." The Emperor nodded slowly. "Then perhaps the stories about humans are wrong. Perhaps you are not the monsters the galaxy fears. Perhaps you are something else entirely. What do you think we are, Your Majesty?" The Emperor considered the question. "I think you are